Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right. Welcome in. We are a week and a half away from the NFL Draft, the 2025 Purple Daily Draft Party, which we'll talk about. Today we have a special guest from NFL Network and from the NFL Daily Podcast, Gregg Rosenthal, that we're going to bring in here in a minute after we start our week at Quick Trip, Judd, like usual. Let's wake up at Quick Trip.
Exactly right. Why? Because Quick Trip has everything that you could possibly want when it comes to food. Look, so you're driving to work and you forgot your lunch, right? And you're like, what am I going to do, Sports Dad? I don't have my lunch. And I'm going to tell you right now, calm down, slow down, and stop at Quick Trip. If you are looking for something good to snack on, to eat for lunch, Quick Trip's got that. Heck, we're going through right now all of the options at Quick Trip, and they're outstanding. And now you're saying, but I don't have time to go in. What am I going to do, Sports Dad? And Sports Dad is here for you once again to tell you, just put the app on your phone, and they will come out to you with your food. It doesn't get any easier. Quick Trip, a business that lives up to its name, the best in town.
Could be a good business decision for you to get a snack.
I like it.
Also, like I said, in a week and a half, it's the 2025 Purple Daily Draft Party presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. You can get your tickets and join hundreds of your fellow Vikings fans and consumers of this podcast at the Fillmore in Minneapolis, scorenorth.com/draft, Thursday, April 24th at 7 p.m. There's more information at scorenorth.com/draft about tickets, about the 15% room rate discount at Element. That's scorenorth.com/element. And the pre-party at Bricksworth just across the street as well that starts at 3:30 until 5. So it should be a fun night. Whatever they wind up doing in the draft, we have no idea. They might trade back, but they also spent $250 million on free agents, and we will talk a lot about that throughout draft night. But yeah, shout out to Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, a shout out to Two Men in a Junk Truck and Roku and our other partners that help us put this really fun event on every year. All right, you hear him or maybe see him on the NFL Daily Podcast for NFL Media. You can find him as a host and contributor on NFL Network. And I think he's going to be considered a friend of the show officially now. We interact on social media. But Gregg Rosenthal, you are now a friend of the show. Welcome in.
I mean, I feel like you guys are my friends. I've been having a parasocial relationship with Purple Daily now for a couple of years. You guys do a great job. It's almost weird to put... I've seen your face on social, Mackie. I don't know if I call you Phil or Mackie, but I'm an old, so I listen audio-wise. I'm an old school podcast listener. So to see you and Declan, who's got great pipes for a producer, it's great to see you.
Declan, look at that, dude.
Full
Good
pipes
compliment
today. What about Judd? I mean, you got anything nice to say about Judd, Greg?
I felt like I just left out Judd. Well, Judd kind of goes without saying. I read Judd way back the Star Tribune, so it almost goes without saying. We don't know each other personally, but he's the star here.
Judd's old.
Yeah,
Judd's old. I read Judd back in the 70s. It was unbelievable. He's come so far.
Greg, when did you, what was your Pro Football Talk tenure? When did you start there?
Okay, that was like 2009 through 12 or so. I had been working out at NBCSports.com and Roto-World, which was bought by NBC, and then I kind of came along with the package. So it was a short but fun trip there with Florio over at PFT.
So you probably aggregate, because Judd was the lead Vikings beat writer at the Star Tribune during the Brett Favre run. So you probably wound up like aggregating Judd's insider scoops about is Brett Favre retiring for the 9th time? Is he coming back?
Oh, so much, because Florio tried back then to pretend he wasn't a Vikings fan, but we would have these little stats on the side of the page of which team had the most posts, and at the end of every year, I'd say, you tell me you're not a Vikings fan, Florio, and we've written 150 more articles about the Vikings than any other team, so it was pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, we wrote about their punt return competition for the 4th time, Mike. What's going on?
The problem with Mike is he loves that team so much, Greg, that he can't help but crap on them constantly, too. Nobody gets more upset, including on this show, and we can get upset. Nobody gets more upset than Florio when he thinks that the Vikings have done something stupid.
Yes, that is the thing with if you're a fan covering it, you're usually harder. I was like that. I still probably am about the Patriots, who I grew up watching, and but I go back further actually a little bit with Judd too, because I was aggregating back at Roto World in 2003, 2004. So that was my entire job, was reading all the beat writers each and every day. I used to do like a rankings of my favorite beat writers and stuff. That was internet 1.0 time. So I would go back a ways.
Dude, that would be actually that we should do that. We should do like Gregg's. That could be a great YouTube clickbait right there. Favorite beat writers in the last 15 years.
I wouldn't put least favorite. I think I would just put top 10 because I knew I would get in trouble if I.
Bottom 10. Bottom 10.
Great.
Amazing. So, all right, we'd love to run you through 5 questions surrounding the Vikings that kind of pertain to the different benchmarks on the show. So we're going to go through your earliest Vikings memory. We know you didn't grow up as a Vikings fan, but you bring a unique perspective league-wide to this. Your hottest Vikings take, we're going to ask you for a Vikings vent, a write that down prediction, and your favorite random Viking of all time. But I'd love to throw this out to the group real quick before we get to the questions. Somebody on Twitter yesterday, or X, whatever we're calling it now, sent out a post that, hey, if you're not a golf fan but you're an NFL fan, how would you describe Rory McIlroy winning the Masters as an NFL fan? And my answer was, and obviously we're biased, we do a Vikings show every day, I think it was like the Vikings winning a Super Bowl. If the Masters is the Super Bowl, and I get that he's won other majors, and the other majors are considered, Grand Slam events, but if the Masters is the Super Bowl of golf, wouldn't the Vikings equal Rory McIlroy in that equation?
They would. There's another couple teams out there that would certainly raise their hand and say we're that team too. The Browns certainly would be on the list. The Bengals, the Lions would be on the list. Well, see, that's one of the reasons I was hoping for a Lions-Bills Super Bowl this last year. I'm trying to think individually though. Do you guys have a Rory individual? I don't know.
Boy. Oh, well, I guess you could say collectively Vikings kickers are actually where it's like the putt that you need to make if you're Gary
what
Anderson
quarterback would be him now?
For me, it would have been Phil Rivers back in the day, although people probably wouldn't put Phil Rivers up in that category, but it would have been someone like Phil Rivers. It would be Lamar in 5 or 6 years. He would have to even go through more pain, but eventually Lamar Jackson.
Josh Allen is, I guess, even getting to the Super Bowl for both him and Lamar. Yeah. So I don't know. Commenters, you can workshop that in the Purple Daily comment section.
Is a good one because I do think the overall emotion if they won would be so huge.
And part of it for Rory is because the Vikings we've said it's the best team over the course of 60 years, probably in any of the 4 major men's professional sports, to not win the championship. Now that the Astros won one in baseball and. There's been some other examples. The Cubs, the Cubs were terrible for a long time, though. I'm saying the Vikings have been really, really good largely for 60 years, much like Rory has been really, really good for, the 11 years that he whiffed on the Masters, or the extra 17 years, I think, that he whiffed on the Masters. It's a long time. So, anyways, Gregg, what is your earliest Vikings memory? Let's start there.
Okay, I had to think about this. I was a big Randall Cunningham guy when he was with the Eagles. It was actually, I think it was the first time I realized you could like other teams and you could like other quarterbacks, because the Patriots were always rolling out Steve Grogan and Hugh Millen and these guys that were tough. And then you see Randall Cunningham on these highlights and you're like, wow, I can't believe a player could be like that. So he sort of became my guy. So the thing that sticks out to me most, I'm sure I watched him plenty before that. I remember that Drew Bledsoe game actually that went back and forth. I guess that would have been the right answer. Sometimes I got to talk it out loud. But the thing that popped in my mind first was the comeback against the Giants in the wild card game, where I don't need to explain it to you, but the Cunningham has the ball with under 2 to go on the 30-yard line, down by 9 or 10, and they win in regulation. They hit the touchdown to Jake Reed, they get the onside kick, and they kick a field goal to stun the Giants in New York. So that is the first one that popped in my mind.
That's a good one. So you in your years as a fan, the Patriots, you went through some rough times though, because before the Patriots became the Patriots, that franchise was a disaster because they went to a Super Bowl and they got beat by the Bears in '85. But your youth must have been filled with some really, really bad football.
Yeah, it was really big. I remember the Dick McPherson year where I think they won 5 games, and just because he was like a local-ish Irish guy who was good at press conference, it felt like they were like the best, most exciting team in the league, and they just had a few comeback wins to win 5 or 6 games. So they were pretty rough. My first game in person, I remember, was a Doug Flutie win over the Colts, but they only won 3 games that year, so it was some rough teams.
You started to reference a Vikings Patriots game, and was it the one like 94 where Bledsoe threw for like 500 yards or something?
Yes, I always remember that because we had to leave to go to my grandfather's house like right at the end of it or whatever. But I do remember he set all the passing records. It was back and forth, and I was just like, football is my favorite sport. This is the most amazing thing. When they got Drew Bledsoe, that was kind of like them becoming a real franchise with Parcells for a while.
And that game, if I remember correctly, in '94 was Moon Bledsoe, right?
Yes,
Warren Moon was.
Yeah.
And you
Bledsoe set the record, I'm pretty sure, for yards in a game, or maybe it was attempts in a game, but it was just like, wow, I didn't know football could be like this, where it's just back and forth, shoot them out.
It was wild. Yeah, didn't Kadri Ismail caught a big touchdown pass in that game? I don't know. There was a lot going on. Okay, what is your currently, or historically, I guess, your hottest Vikings take?
Well, I was thinking just over the last couple of weeks, what we've been talking about on our show, my hottest Vikings take is that of all the over-unders that were put out for this year, that Vikings 8.5 is the most disrespectful. And if I was allowed to gamble, I work for the NFL. I'm not allowed to gamble anymore since I joined the NFL. That would be the number one thing I would pick. Of all the overs, of all the unders, the Vikings 8.5 was sitting out there. And I know I'm just giving this to you guys on Purple Daily, so I'm playing to the crowd a little bit. But it's really true. I didn't believe in the Vikings at all last year, that they were really that good of a team throughout. And this time, to think that they'd go from 14 to 8.5. And meanwhile, the rest of the NFC North is above them a couple games, I think. And so that seemed to me like the worst over-under in the entire NFL right now is Vikings 8.5. That's my hottest take.
And I believe, if I'm correct, I think the Bears are about the same, which is incredible. Which is absolutely incredible.
They were 9 games apart last year.
I know. Well, and the Bears, until the Bears prove it, like, first-year coach, there's a lot of things. Like, the Bears might improve. I don't know. But that being said, the Vikings proved it, right? And the Bears have a guy that we all assume in Ben Johnson, who's going to be great, but we don't, certainly know that for sure. So I'm with you. The McCarthy factor. So what's your expectation there? Because I contend that figure was put out based on one thing, which is first-year starting QB. So what's your expectation for JJ McCarthy?
I don't know what it is, but it's as high or higher than it was for Sam Darnold going into last year. I would say maybe a little bit higher. And so, we're going to do the vent line later, and that's sort of KOC quarterback related. So I won't totally step on it yet. I just think the baseline for this team is quite high, and it's less about the quarterback. It's obviously more about Kevin O'Connell, but it's more about the rest of the roster. If you just line up their roster and their coaching staff, I guess taking quarterback out of it, they're a top, 5 to 8 team certainly in the NFL. And KOC being kind of the guy who's coaching up those quarterbacks, I lift that up. Like, I loved what they did in free agency. They don't have a lot of holes. They have a lot of continuity. They fixed what you wanted them to fix. I just don't get it for 8.5.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I would say, like, maybe we're being homers when we take the over, but I feel like we are as objective and sometimes even unreasonably pessimistic on this show. And that's maybe one of the complaints that we've had to explain that a few times over the years, that we're not sitting here wearing Victor the Viking helmets on every show.
Although you guys get caught up with it too. It's why I love Purple. The fact that you guys can make, a great show about the same team each and every day, that was almost put in my head. Like, I can do one about the entire NFL then when I was coming up with this new show. You guys do ride the roller coaster, though, because I do remember just looking at the titles of your podcast during last season, and I think there was like a 2-week period early last season where you went from, I don't know if this is a playoff team or not, and then there was one podcast title was like, are they the Super Bowl favorites? Or are they going to the Super Bowl? Where they
get the flag!
And I was like,
get the flag!
This is Greg. This is why I think they updated me from producer to executive producer for those exact type of reasons. Was the headlines and
chief
titles
clickbait officer.
Yeah.
I was like, it worked on me. I was like, I gotta listen to this one. They're a little over their skis here at Purple Daily.
Way to go, Dex.
Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, like on the 8.5 thing, just logically, okay, so 14 is aggressive, and no team, you're never gonna. The projections that come out, even the Chiefs are always the highest you'll see is like maybe 11.5, maybe it gets to 12 on some of these teams. So you have to build in. There's going to be regression with any 14-win team, 100%, and you're going to play a second place schedule. The Vikings have a hard home schedule this year, but they added their biggest weakness was interior defensive pressure. And Brian Flores has had to make up for the lack of organic interior pressure by dialing up 50% blitz rates for 2 years. All right, go get Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave so that you can play coverage more often and you can have a more credible rotation. So we feel like they fixed their biggest weakness. Their second biggest weakness was interior pressure allowed on offense and run game with the center and the guard positions. All right, go look at one of the 5 best offensive lines in the league and just steal 40% of them from the Colts, bring them over. So I guess it comes down to if you trust that KOC has already – he turned Kirk Cousins into one of the great fourth quarter comeback quarterbacks ever 2 years ago. He turned Sam Darnold from a laughingstock and a bust to a $100 million contract guy. Then unless JJ McCarthy is atrocious or hurt or whatever it is, but dude, they've shown even with Nick Mullins and some of these backup, Josh Dobbs they went 2-2 with. So yeah, I guess long story longer, we were just as befuddled and felt disrespected by the 8.5 as you did.
Well, their third biggest weakness, maybe even higher on that list in the games that mattered at the end of the season, was Sam Darnold. So there's a real possibility that that's an upgrade. They're certainly hoping for that long term, but I mean, even in 2025, I think there's a decent chance that's an upgrade.
What was your surprise or non-surprise that Sam fell apart? Especially, I thought the Detroit game, the Rams game, the Vikings were terrible. Like he was terrible. The entire team was. But the Detroit game felt, I think it's fair to pin that loss. It starts with him. After that good of season and 14 wins, were you surprised that he went in the tank, so to speak, in that game at all?
Based on everything that had happened up until that point, sure, I was surprised. But I've been a Darnold skeptic his whole career, and I do have a hard time thinking that you can coach everything out of him. Probably the thing I hate the most when evaluating quarterbacks is guys who aren't winning from the neck up, that can't process as quickly, that crumble a little bit when the pressure is around them. Not in a big game so much as just in the pocket. And to me, that's Darnold. That's always been his problem. So it was kind of like I had to be quiet and eat a lot of humble pie on my podcast about Darnold all season from my other guests. Like Colleen Wolfe was a big Darnold supporter, and Daniel Jeremiah's getting after me on him. So it was kind of satisfying to see him collapse like that. Not to not to pick on you guys.
A slam dunk on him.
Okay, well, I've got a McCarthy thing or two, but I think maybe there's a segue here with the third question, which is your biggest Vikings vent, because you kind of hinted it was quarterback KOC related. So what is your biggest Vikings vent?
Well, yeah, it's about your listeners sometimes that I've heard on the vent line. So that I immediately went to the vent line and complaining about KOC. I mean, you guys don't know how good you have it. Give me a break. When the season totally collapsed and they're talking about his job security, I thought, are you guys like smoking crap? This guy turned Kirk Cousins, who has always just been Kirk Cousins, into an MVP candidate for stretches of time. He turned Sam Darnold, who had failed in so many places, and even Kyle Shanahan didn't want to like pay him like big time backup quarterback money. He turned him into an MVP candidate. In the end, he still got someone gave him a vote. I don't know who gave him a vote. He got a vote at some point last season. And so to think that this guy, who I think it was a very difficult rebuilding situation that he had, and then finding Flores, what he's done. My vent is about like, you don't know how good you have it. He is one of the best coaches in the league, and it's a team sport. A team can collapse, and the coach can still be an excellent, excellent coach. And that is about as valuable as a thing as you can have in the NFL, other than a great quarterback, is to have a coach that can coach up quarterbacks like KOC does.
So where would he fall if you were to rank your, like, let's say top 5 coaches, top 10?
Yeah.
Where does he fall right now?
I'd have to make the list because I hate when you do that and you're like, oh, of course he's a top 5, and then you make the list and he probably would be, I'm guessing off the top of my head, somewhere between 5 and 8. And that's just because some of the other guys have some major playoff pelts on the wall that you give them the edge to. But he seems like he's got both. He's got the intangible stuff that I think Sean McVay doesn't get enough credit for, but he's also got the X's and O's and the coaching stuff. So that's what you want. And he's young. In terms of a guy you'd want for the next 10 years, I think he'd be even higher because then he'd pass guys like Mike Tomlin, for instance.
Yeah. I mean, he has one of the best, and it's a 3-year sample, but so it's Andy Reid has a 20-year sample, but he has one of the best winning percentages of any active coach in the NFL. And on the McCarthy front, so it's funny how we feel like almost every quarterback discussion on this show eventually ends with, but we trust Kevin O'Connell's instinct, so whatever he decides. And if he were to decide that, you know what, we do need to bring in Aaron Rodgers because what we're seeing behind the scenes isn't clicking with McCarthy, I think there'd be a debate, obviously, among the fan base and the media and everything. But I think he has proven over 3 years, and even the work that he did alongside McVay with Matthew Stafford and elevating that offense too, that he deserves that trust. And that's so you mentioned earlier that it's possible that JJ McCarthy might be an upgrade from Sam Darnold, which is hard to fathom because you look at the back of the football card numbers and Darnold threw like 35 touchdowns and had a 1.0 whatever passer rating. But it was in those moments where, all right, you're on the road, you're facing a great team. Is your internal clock fast enough to get rid of that ball quickly and throw it into a tight window and have it not be an interception? People rip McCarthy in college because, well, he didn't have to do anything. He just handed the ball off. But I would argue, and KOC would argue, he was put in more third and high leverage situations where dude, running the ball did not work on the first 2 downs, and now it's 3rd and 9 and we need you. And he was great at those things. And that translates better to the NFL than maybe and Bo Nix was great as a rookie, but Bo Nix is being asked in this tricked up offense to do a lot of short intermediate stuff. JJ McCarthy was being asked to throw high traffic passes on 3rd and 7 against some of the best teams in college football, and KOC clearly latched onto that. So,
and he's physically talented, and maybe that preseason game where he looked good is doing a lot of work for me. But I was like, oh, okay, this looks pretty good. And if Sam Darnold had been drafted into a situation like this Vikings team, like JJ McCarthy is, he would not have the same career that he had. He would have had a lot more success. Now, I don't think he would have been a top-notch quarterback, but you guys might disagree. I still never even thought last year that I would have taken a healthy pre-injury Kirk Cousins. I would have taken Kirk Cousins ahead of Sam Darnold. So I thought the way he played for the Vikings in KOC was probably always at a higher level even than what Darnold was doing. I just thought Darnold was mostly on easy mode, and he has a lot of talented players around him, but it wasn't like I thought he was suddenly a top 5 quarterback in the league.
2022, what O'Connell did with Kirk was phenomenal. Like he took a guy who was and has been a really good stat stuffer, and he turned him clutch. Like they had 8 fourth quarter comebacks. That's phenomenal. The one thing though that Sam showed and Kirk showed, and where I think there has to be faith that McCarthy, who won a championship at college, has, is when you got to the playoffs though, right? With Sam, with Kirk, he still checked the ball down on 4th and 8.
Right.
So I would say this. I don't know that a Kevin O'Connell can get a quarterback who's not wired exactly right to make a playoff run. But, I mean, he has definitely shown that he can puppeteer guys. And it will be, I think, extremely intriguing to watch Sam in Seattle now. Because are we going to get a version of that? Are we going to see what we saw last year? Is he basically somewhere between his best, like with the Panthers and the Vikings? But I do think the most important thing is, and the Vikings are banking, Greg, on this, which is McCarthy is wired right as well. So when the pressure's on in the playoffs, there's no checkdowns, there's no choke job. He actually can process things.
Right. And with the whole talking to Aaron Rodgers thing, it's so impossible to know what the truth is. Was he just almost being respectful of Rodgers because Rodgers wanted it so much, or was he really into it because he thinks he could put Rodgers in the system and Rodgers would be a lot better, because Rodgers would be a lot better than the Rodgers we saw a year ago. Maybe it would work, but it would have just stunted McCarthy's development. And yeah, I'm fascinated to see how Darnold does with an old Vikings coordinator, Clint Kubiak, there in Seattle. I don't know. Like, I think it's not going to go that well, but I also that's the situation where I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. On the one last thing on the Rodgers thing, then we'll get to the other two questions. But there was a time we spent so much time on our old 4-hour radio show because the Rodgers Green Bay stuff started to turn a little awkward maybe in like 2019, 2020. And we spent a lot of time in the what if machine. Man, the Brett Favre run was so fun in 2009. And Packers fans across the border were burning his jersey. It was the best football troll job ever. And it would have been even more epic if they won the Super Bowl. Is Rodgers going to parallel that at some point? Could he get away from Green Bay and then to go to the Jets and have the falling out just like Favre did? So there's been a part of us that's like, boy, that would be kind of fun to see that play out with the Vikings. But at the same time, you don't want to wreck JJ McCarthy and turn this thing into a laughing stock and a joke. I think we're off of it now.
I hope so.
But it's been this crazy parallel.
Get off. Yeah, the difference is Rodgers didn't look like Rodgers really in his last year in Green Bay. That's been on my radar this whole time. He actually didn't play that well in 2022. And Favre, for instance, before he had the injury with the Jets, looked great that year. And like, you can't say the same. So you didn't see the same decline, I think, out of Favre before he got to Minnesota, other than he had the injuries that you've seen out of Rodgers.
Yeah, and Brett too was an odd duck, but Brett was popular. I mean, people loved Brett. Brett was this, and I feel like in this case, you'd be bringing a bunch of attention, and you'd also be bringing in a guy who I don't think he's despised by teammates. I also don't think he's as popular as like a Brett. So, yeah, I think the O'Connell's emergence here, Greg, in my opinion, has finally, for the first time in years and years and years, changed the conversation of quarterback desperation here. Because that's, Brett was that. Brett was like, this team is really good. What are you going to do? Because Tavares Jackson and Sage, God bless them, aren't going to be able to win enough games. So, but that was the QB desperation 20 years, 25 years. O'Connell now has a body of work where you can trust that he actually is making a decision, not based on desperation, but on what he thinks he can accomplish.
Yeah. Before we get to the last two questions here, a few more minutes with Gregg Rosenthal. For these new Vikings that signed for $250 million, if they need a moving truck, Declan, who should they call? Who should they turn to?
Our friends at Two Men in a Truck would be the perfect ones to get there. And I know, guys like Will Fries and Ryan Kelly probably look like they could probably move the guys and move the 2 Men in a Truck guys.
Don't throw your back out, yeah.
Exactly. That's the last thing. And then Sports Dad goes on a rant about why are you even moving when you could have just hired 2 men in a truck.
Amen.
It's the last thing I want to hear. So 2meninatruck.com. Okay, they'll give you a no hidden fees or no service charges. What they quote is what you pay. And don't wait. Don't try to DIY this. Don't worry about hurting yourself. Let the professionals handle it. 2meninatruck.com to find a location near you.
Those guys look like they can put a craft beer down too. So I'd recommend going to Brixworth in the North Loop if you are one of the new offensive linemen here or anyone who consumes the show. And a reminder, so not Brixworth, amazing Detroit-style pizza, some of the best dry rub wings in town, and world-renowned craft beer. But also the host of the Purple Daily Draft Party pre-party from 3:30 to 5 o'clock next Thursday, April 24th. You can win tickets to the actual draft party. You can come hang out with us, and you can have the Sports Dad sign one body part per person. So, yeah, check us out at Brixworth. Yeah, they haven't told you about that yet?
No.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk offline about that. You'll have to bring a Sharpie, Judd, and maybe some hand sanitizer. But yeah, we'll put a pin in that. Circle back. Brixworth, 3:30 to 5 for the Purple Daily Draft Party pre-party. Okay, Gregg Rosenthal, give us your Vikings related, or if you want to go NFL related, we want an on the record write that down prediction from you.
Okay, I figured I had to go Vikings. And that we already talked the 8.5, and that seemed too boring to just go over for that. So I'm just going very specific and kind of dorky here, which I went and looked at the rushing numbers for the Vikings. DVOA is what I used. Efficiency in the Kevin O'Connell era. They're terrible. They had their best rushing effort last year, 20th. The 2 years before that, 27th and 27th. And so I did like the idea that they signed these two guys from the Colts. Injuries are a concern with Ryan Kelly, certainly, but that they know how to play together, and that Kelly is an ultimate leader and is really going to improve probably their worst position. So my write this down is just you're going to have the best rushing attack of the Kevin O'Connell era, in part because of them, in part because of Jordan Mason, who I like too. I'm just going to say they're better than average. For the first time, they're going to be better than 16th here in DVOA. Let's go.
Can they score a bleeping red zone touchdown on the ground? That's the real question.
That comes into the efficiency number. So yes, we don't need to go crazy. I want to go 1-0 on write this down. So I'm just going to keep it conservative.
I like
better
it.
than average.
Yeah. So DVOA, and man, it was the playoff game, or no, was it the Lions game in Week 18 where Darnold had like 6 point-blank chances in the end zone and got the yips, but the reason you keep calling those pass plays is because over the course of 4 months we can't run the ball in from the 3-yard line. But what are your thoughts, Jordan Mason? Your thoughts?
I really like him. I think he is a great compliment to Aaron Jones, who I'm a big fan of, but wore down, I think, at the end of last year. Like, I thought he looked great the first half of the year. He's always so underrated, but he needs someone else to maybe it's even, it might even be 1A Jordan Mason, 1B Aaron Jones for much of the year. And then in high leverage situations, you have Jones because he's just a better, more complete player. But I think he's exactly what you think he is, which if you block 4 or 5, he's going to get 5 or 6. Just a hard-nosed runner who hasn't had a lot of mileage, who knows how to play in this system and is a load to tackle. If you watched him last year, I thought he was exactly what the 49ers needed. And they barely had a drop-off without Christian McCaffrey in their running game, at least in terms of their running game, not the passing game as much. But he's good.
I love a big bully back two who can just get you 4 yards.
Yes.
Just get you 4 or 5 yards. It doesn't have to be sexy, but just punishing. It's my favorite, right? That's my favorite.
That's one of our biggest gripes, I feel like, with this team too, is you laid out the DVOA with the running game, but if you even move outside analytics and just into, as Colin Cowherd would say, manalytics for a brief moment, when you play the Vikings, I don't think you get physically beat up like when you play the Lions or those 49ers teams for the last 7 years. Like the crazy record against the Lions and the 49ers, like the next week, teams that play those teams are so battered and bruised that they lose their next game. The Vikings are not like that.
Yeah, it's where you have to pick on KOC a little bit. That's been a shortcoming, where the other guys in that coaching tree, Sean McVay, they've been up and down, but when they're right, they want to run the ball really well. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's one of the greatest coaches of all time, I think, in terms of running the ball. And even Mike McDaniel, until last year, they really started in Miami with the running game, and the Vikings haven't been able to do that.
Okay, and then last question here, because we know that you have your own life and career to get to here, and you're on the West Coast, and you're waking up early for us. Who is your favorite random Viking of all time, Greg?
Oh, this was the easiest answer ever, because he might be my favorite random player of all time, and that's Mewelde Moore, maybe the greatest Tulane football player ever. Not in the NFL, but at Tulane. That was my alma mater. I did the student television back in the day, and I knew J.P. Lossman's career was going absolutely nowhere before it even started, because late in Mewelde Moore's career, there was a schism in that locker room, and supposedly, there were the Mewelde guys, and then there's J.P. Lossman, and that, okay, this guy, Mewelde Moore is the guy, not only an underrated player, but the best dude and leader and everything, and one of my favorite third down backs of all time. So it's Mewelde Moore.
How did that start? The schism.
I don't know. It was past my time, and I read about it, and I talked to some people there. I was already working, I think, at Roto World, the PFT by then. You can read about it, actually, and it's like, you're going to take this guy in the first round just because he throws the ball far, but his teammates in college didn't even like him, and they didn't even win enough games for the talent that they had. It was so obvious to me that guy was going to be a bust, and that Mewelde Moore would have a great underrated career for a third round pick, and he lasted in the league and was a very useful, good player for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He was one of my favorite Mewelde Moore trivia questions or answers. Mewelde Moore had the same yards per carry as Adrian Peterson as Minnesota Vikings. Both of them just a tick under 5 yards per carry as Minnesota. Now, Peterson, a little higher
Who was
volume.
better on third downs?
Mewelde Moore.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Peterson, whether it was Chester Taylor or Mewelde Moore, you had to take Peterson off the field on third down and put one of those guys in.
But the most important thing is this. To this day, Moore's place in Vikings lore is that he was the only guy in 2005 in the locker room to confirm that there was a boat. He was the only guy. The rest of them were like, what, boat? Boat? I was at a barbecue. And Mewelde was asked, were you on this cruise where these lewd acts took place? And he said, boat? I wasn't on that boat. I'm engaged. And we all said, so there was a boat.
Stand-up guy. See, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. No, he was.
Guy you can trust.
He's like, these
great
dorks were on
third
the
down
boat.
back and a guy that you can let hang around your daughters and your wives. It's great. Gregg Rosenthal from the NFL Daily podcast. You can find him also across all NFL media platforms, NFL Network. Thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. It was a lot of fun. First time, long time.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Amazing.
See you,
All
Greg.
right, Greg, we'll do it again sometime. We'll say goodbye to Greg. We're going to keep it here because we do have a couple mock drafts. We're going to turn this into a mock draft Monday on Purple Daily. But, yeah, I think just to dig in on something he talked about, the running game, he mentioned the other coaches in that tree because there's a huge like zone running component to that playbook and that scheme. And KOC has leaned a little further away from that and into passing. I mean, the year that Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall played half the season and Josh Dobbs, they were still like third in pass attempts. But I do wonder if Greg's prediction, if that's maybe what Kevin O'Connell has circled as like what are his biggest goals in 2025 is to just be more black and blue with your run game compared to the first 3 years.
So KO did evolve a little bit in 2024. They did run more, and it was better. It was not great, but it was improved. And then a couple of weeks ago, he talked about the fact that they want to run more. And so the thing with O'Connell is he's done a really, really good job, but I still think that we have to allow that as a play caller especially, he's developing. Like he's not a finished product yet. And he does love to pass, and he loves that. So I think that the love of the pass and the issues with the run game have caused that. Now, that being said, when you go out and trade for a back in Mason and then go sign 2 interior guys, that to me indicates that there is a building-wise commitment now to run more. And at the end of the day, the blessing in disguise of that Detroit debacle might be that. Because you were, I mean, they could have won that game. And you are 5 yards, 3 yards away. And unless a quarterback who is at that point struggling beyond belief can complete a pass, and in Darnold's defense there, that is a tough little, piece of the field to complete a pass on because it's so compact. But the two things on O'Connell that I think jump out to me as far as the development are, one, exactly that. Like diversifying a little bit more with run and pass. And the second thing, too, is you're 0-2 in the playoffs. And so I don't expect that to last. He's going to win. But I do think that there is, again, an evolution there. And the one thing that O'Connell, I think, got right to start last year and it got away from and it really hurt them was, and we've talked about this, but, go back to training camp. They were into hard-nosed football. Like they practiced harder. They were going to be a tougher, more snarly, mean football team. And they came out that way. But the problem is when you get to like December and January, that's when it gets really hard. And I felt that personality, that side of their personality had sort of waned.
Yeah.
Well, it can't wane. But we do have to give O'Connell a little bit of grace, in my opinion, because he's been so successful that we think, oh, he's a finished product as a coach. He's what, 40-ish? So
is he even 40
39,
yet?
40? But the point is, this is going to be a process. And in the meantime, in 2 of his first 3 years, he's won double-digit games. He's won, 12 and 14 games. So that's pretty damn impressive still.
13. Was it 13? 13 and 14.
13 and 14? Okay, I'm sorry if I messed that up because last time I said it wrong. It was 14 last year, fans. 14 last year.
It is harder.
But anyway, he's won a lot of football games in 3 years, and I don't think that he is done yet as far as being the coach that he will be eventually.
Yeah, by the way, I forgot that KOC and I we share a birthday by the year in the same week. So I turned 40 on May 20th. He turns 40 on May 25th.
Okay.
Just a couple of guys
contemplating
their fate.
Football geniuses,
yeah,
some might say.
Couple guys at the top of their profession. Mm-hmm. That's right.
And one guy's hosting a podcast and wearing a basketball NBA on NBC hat, and one guy is
makes millions of dollars a year. Yeah.
Probably clearing about $8 million these days, or 5, or
it's hilarious.
Whatever the going rate is.
So, we'll get to a couple interesting mocks here, but a huge thank you to Gregg Rosenthal from the NFL Daily podcast and NFL Media. He's a guy that we've kind of just followed throughout his career, and we've sent some DMs. I know you guys have over the years, but that's the first time he's ever been on one of our shows, radio or podcast, and so awesome to get his perspective from a national standpoint.
Patriots fan too. Those are some lean years back then, man.
It's funny because he has that he hides it well because he's on these national platforms now.
You got the Boston,
but he's got the Boston. Every once in a while, he'll skip the R at the end of a word, and it'll be the AH instead.
Don't forget there was a time when Greg was young where Boston sports weren't exactly great.
So there's hope for Minnesota that
Red
we could
Sox,
win 43 championships in a 12-year span, maybe.
Patriots were terrible. Celtics have been competitive, I think.
They were pretty dark, but between
Bruins weren't winning cups.
The Celtics in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s
got pretty dark.
They went to the playoffs a couple times here, and there, but it was not.
So Boston fans at one time, folks, hold out hope. They did suffer.
Yeah. And now I think if the Patriots went dark for 20 years, they would still maybe have debts to pay for their 20-year dynasty. But okay, let's get to some mockage here.
I want a mock.
This mock draft update presented in part by Park Dental. So if you are looking for a better dentist experience, maybe you are without a dentist like I was for a while, or you're looking for something closer, more convenient to wherever you live or work, there's probably a Park Dental location within a few miles wherever you are in the Twin Cities or Western Wisconsin, because over 50 years they've been caring for and cleaning teeth in those areas. I've had a couple great appointments, and I was nervous, man. 1.5 years without a dentist. What am I supposed to do? Are my teeth going to fall out? It's a long time to not get a clean, but I went. There was no condescension. There was nothing to fear.
No judgment?
No judgment. And if they did,
nice.
They held it to themselves, and I appreciate that.
This guy's mouth is a mess. Just clean it up.
Woof, this guy. Schedule your checkup at parkdental.com. Also, Neos Elite Performance can help out our audience, Judd.
Absolutely can. And if you are active and trying to get an edge in life, I'm going to tell you right now, the experts at Neos Elite Performance can help you. Chronic pain slowing you down? Well, here is the thing. Neos Elite's cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy are designed to get you going again without invasive procedures. Folks, this is what they call white glove service delivered to your home. That means no trips to the doctors, the hospital. The team at Neos is going to come to you. So if you are in pain and everyday tasks have become impossible, stop your suffering. Neos' therapy is designed to reduce pain, restore function, and get you back to doing what you love. No surgery, that's important. No downtime, just results. Schedule now at neoselite.com. That's NEOS elite.com. The website also has a ton of information about this. It's cutting-edge stuff. It absolutely can help you out. So check them out at neoselite.com.
And Federated Mutual Insurance Company also helping to power Purple Daily here. Federated is like having a great offensive line for your business. They're all about safety and preventing claims. They also believe in face-to-face and eye-to-eye relationships, value-added customer service combined with risk management resources. And those are the keys to providing the right coverage to help fit your business's needs. You can find a full list of industries Federated tends to work with at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, boys. This one caught my eye. It's a very clickbaity, but I think relevant headline from SI.com's Arizona Cardinals section, where the headline is NFL mock draft trades galore.
Oh, count me in.
So they have several pre-draft trades that they go through before you even get to the mock.
Let's do it.
They've got the Giants sending Kayvon Thibodeau to the Lions.
Ooh.
They've got the Bengals trading Trey Hendrickson to the Falcons. They've got the Falcons trading Kirk Cousins to the Steelers. Then they've got the Dolphins sending Tyreek Hill back to the Chiefs.
Whoa.
The Packers trading Jair Alexander to the Jaguars.
That makes sense.
And the Jets trading Breece Hall to the Bears.
Okay, because they're going to take...
Pre-draft.
Well, that is. Okay, but this is bringing it. This is what we want.
This is how you mock. If you're just filling out 1 through 32,
exactly,
don't even bother.
Don't,
because
right.
it's not realistic. Not that this is realistic either, but at least you're trying to hunt
But this is
for
having
some
fun.
trades. Yes.
Like, this is all about the fun factor.
So they've got the Titans selecting Cam Ward, the Browns taking Travis Hunter. So, yeah, the Browns didn't have to trade their... Well, they traded Kirk, I guess. So, and then the Saints trading up to the 3rd spot for Shedeur Sanders.
Because Carr is now likely, correct, out for the season.
Yeah,
Shoulder
his
surgery
shoulder's all
possibly
jacked
came out on
up.
Friday. It's a very bizarre thing, but
Super weird.
sounds like he might not play this coming season. Interesting.
Patriots take Abdul Carter. Let's see here. I'm just Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders at 6.
Ooh, okay.
I'm just looking for trades and quarterbacks here now. Okay.
Who are the Jets taking, if I may ask, since they traded Breece Hall?
Sure. They take Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. And I'm guessing they go after more running backs in a running back thick draft. Sure. Okay, they've got the Buccaneers trading up to 16. This is wild. All right, scrolling down here. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Vikings.
It's the Chiefs on the clock with the 24th overall pick.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is actually the exact trade that we simulated, I think, on the Thursday episode last week, where the Chiefs trade up for that Texas offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks, who can maybe play some guard and tackle. I don't love the compensation back to the Vikings here. So Vikings move back 7 spots to the 31st pick, and all they get is a 2026 4th-round pick?
What the hell?
What? No. We're done.
No.
Okay, this whole thing just fell apart.
It would
Like,
have to
this
be
was-
like something else.
This was so exciting.
Well,
A
but it's
2026 4th-round pick?
my guess is this is the Arizona Cardinals wing of SI.com.
Okay.
So it's possible not to hey, praise to the writer for
know what
doing all
happened?
these trades, but he's probably not doing the draft value chart deep dive
This
on
person
the 24th pick.
ran out of gas. This person ran out of
Lost their
steam.
focus.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what am I? Oh, I'm already at 24. Oh, they'll just give him a 2026.
But with the 31st pick, the Minnesota Vikings select out of East Carolina cornerback Siobhan Ravel, who we've seen mocked a few times.
All right.
To the purple.
Yeah, I hate that trade.
Let's assume it's more. You're going to get more than.
I'm just saying. You had me in the palm of your hand with all of these great trades. I love this, and then you get to that one, and I'm like, nah, that's not happening.
The write-up says it's time for another plate appearance for the Vikings as they try yet again to find an answer at outside cornerback. Ravel is a big, long cover man, and his recovery from season-ending injury last year appears to be perfectly on time. He should be set to start out of the gate, and there won't be much competition to push him. So he would just instantly start him, Byron Murphy, and I'm guessing Isaiah Rodgers when it's the nickel. So there you go. Okay. But I also have one from Pro Football Focus.
I want a mock.
Let's see what they say. This is
Head bobbing.
it's here.
Headbanger.
Cam Ward, number 1 of the Titans. Travis Hunter, Browns. Shedeur Sanders, Giants. And apparently, I don't think we're doing trades here. Maybe, I don't know.
So Shadeur's back up now. 2 weeks ago he was down.
Yeah,
Now feels like he's back up.
he's at 3 here. Then they have Jackson Dart to the Saints at 9. Ashton Jeanty to the Bears at 10. And it says there's 4 quarterbacks in here, actually, in the headline. Oh, wow. Jalen Milroe to the Steelers at 21. Interesting.
I heard, who was it? I heard an analysis of, I think it might have been Jeremiah. He was talking about, I think it was him. He compared Milroy as a rookie to the potential of Jackson, and said that he could be used as a gimmick player, like a package of plays in year 1, and develop him to be the starter in 2026.
Okay.
Daniel
But the
Jeremiah,
Steelers also need a guy for this year.
Yep. No, that's true.
So,
although they could start Rudolph if they wanted, like, I wouldn't want to, but you could start him.
I mean, the Vikings could start, Brett Rippon if they wanted to.
I think, hold on a second. Mason has a little bit more experience than Brett starting games.
Okay, he's played more football, I guess, but
yeah. Well, Brett Rippon is a coach in waiting. Let's be very clear here. Brett
Rippon
Rippon
Rudolph might be a coach in waiting too.
Yep. I'm just saying he has started more games. He started games 2 years back now for the Steelers. I'm just saying there's that possibility. I don't like it.
If you had Judd standing for Mason Rudolph on today's bingo card.
Well, if you are going to take Milroy, then are you going to also sign another QB? I mean, if he's a first round pick, he's going to play pretty soon. And if you don't think he's set to play on opening day, then I'm telling you, I think you probably have to go to the backup, at least for the short term.
No. So here's what the Vikings are doing with the 24th overall pick, PFF. They stick and pick from NDSU, Gray Zabel.
I want a mock.
Were you the one, Phil, that brought up last week, though, that this would very much fly in the face of what the quasi draft philosophy has been as far as the division? 4-0, okay.
Yeah, 4-0. Well, it's also, he acknowledged small sample size, but the Quasi and company have been really, really heavily into the Power 4 conference guys.
Correct.
And Gray Zabel is far from that, obviously. He played, according to PFF, played left tackle last year, garnered a 93.1 PFF pass blocking grade after allowing only 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 4 hurries. Zabel has the ability to play multiple positions along the offensive line, but would start at guard initially for the Vikings.
Start at left guard, and he's country strong.
That's right.
He's going to be country strong. I sort of like the pick, to be honest with you.
I don't hate it. I mean, it would be hypocritical to sit here and complain about the offensive line year after year after year, and then be mad that they completed the final piece of the puzzle, at least on paper, with the one question mark left.
Correct.
That if they fill that, I don't know how you could be upset. It'd be nice if you could trade back, get some extra capital, and still get that dude maybe 4 picks later.
Yep.
So there you have it.
I loved the first mock until the Vikings. I loved it up until then. I love the pre-draft trades, by the way. Just kudos on that.
Yeah, but what are we doing here? Arizona Cardinals section of SI.com. Let's open up the draft value chart a little bit here, okay?
I'm telling you, ran out of steam. Just tuckered. It's time for a nap. Okay, I'm just going to get one more done. I'm going to trade the Chiefs to 24 and the Vikings. They'll swap picks and get something in the future.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever. Oh, man. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us here on this Monday. Another thanks to Gregg Rosenthal. And if you haven't done so already, click that like button and the subscribe button on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. And a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple and Spotify also helps us keep growing this thing. A week and a half until the 2025 Purple Daily Draft Party presented by Standard Heating and Air. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.